In my last video of this series, video 6, I revealed the directory tree for the libraries of the processing system of life. Before I explain more about the openings of the books, I want to set the record straight about the ancient writings taken by the churches and edited to tell a completely false story. The first question. When anyone refers to I, me, or my, who or what is being referred to? The human body, or something else? The greatest deception is to refer to the human body when we say either I, me, or my. Why? Because not a single part of the human anatomy, including the brain, is aware of anything. The only thing aware of anything is awareness. Hold out your hand, so you are looking at the palm of your hand, and examine it carefully to find out whether it is aware of anything, itself, or you, the observer. Now close your eyes, and slowly move your hand around, still trying to observing it. This magnifies the feeling of disconnection. So, what is observing the human body and its environment? It is awareness. Now let's see where this awareness is. Close your eyes and examine the origin of this awareness. Awareness does not feel to be any part of the human anatomy. In fact, you can't detect the size, nor the space it occupies. Why? Because it is non-dimensional, and involves something else, other than what you are observing. Regarding the Roman Church and her breakaway denominations, it is greatly disturbing to see the lies the churches are telling about the so-called return of Jesus. Here is a little from their own Roman scriptures that reveals they are lying. Jesus said to another man, being crucified next to him, recorded in the Gospel according to Luke, in chapter 23, verses 42 and 43, quote, "And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me, when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." That same day, Jesus was laid in a tomb. Now no one can convince me that paradise is a tomb. So, when Jesus died, the life of Jesus, falsely referred to as a ghost, went to his Father, and would have had to return to the earth again, for the resurrection. This is the second coming of Jesus. The first time coming to the earth was when he was born. The second time was when he was resurrected. Nowhere in their Bible does it mention that Jesus comes back for a third time, period. At the time of the resurrection of Jesus, according to biblical writings, many others were resurrected at that time. From the Gospel according to Matthew, in chapter 27, verses 52 and 53, quote, "And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints, which slept, arose, and came out of the graves, after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many." End quote. Is this why the Romans burned Jerusalem, razing it to the ground, and plowed it into the ground, because they were terrified? And where are these ones that were resurrected today? And from the Gospel, according to John, in chapter 16, verse 16, quote, "A little while, and ye shall not see me, and again, a little while, and ye shall see me, because I go to the Father." End quote. A little while is not 2,000 years. So, you see the life of Jesus has already returned to the earth, a second time, recorded in their own writings. And from the Gospel according to Luke, in chapter 12, verses 45 and 46, quote, "But and if that servant say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to beat the men servants and maidens, and to eat and drink, and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looketh not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and will cut him in sunder, and will appoint him his portion, with the unbelievers." End quote. The Roman Church and her breakaway denominations have delayed the coming of Jesus by about 2,000 years, in saying he has yet to return. So, the churches are telling absolute straight-out lies about Jesus. However, Jesus did talk about the coming of the Son of Man, more correctly the man-child mentioned in the Revelation chapter 12. The Son of Man or the man-child is not Jesus, period. The Son of Man was in heaven at the time Jesus walked the earth. From the Gospel according to John, in chapter 3, verse 13, quote, "And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven." End quote. Note: the word which is used, referring to the Son of Man, not who. The word who refers to a person, but the word which refers to a component, and not a person. The return of Jesus, and the day of the Lord, and the coming of the Son of Man are all entirely different events. From the Gospel according to Matthew, in chapter 24, verses 27 to 30, quote, "For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven, with power and great glory." End quote. Whereas the day of the Lord is much different. From the book of Amos, in chapter 5, verses 18 to 24, quote, "Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord! To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness, and not light. As if a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house, and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness, and not light? Even very dark, and no brightness in it? I hate, and I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Though ye offer me burnt offerings, and your meat offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy viols. But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream." End quote. If these verses referred to Jesus, they would say Jesus instead of the Son of Man. Where the root of confusion is introduced, concerning religious writings, is where the scribes have deliberately confused Adam with man, in a vain attempt to deceive and conceal the truth. In the first book of Moses, not written by Moses, called Genesis, written in chapter 1, verse 26, quote, "And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Whereas in chapter 2, verse 7, quote, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." There are the problems with this verse. First, man, which is the title for the soul, is not made from the dust of the ground. God is not the dust of the ground. Second, the soul does not breathe air, as it is in the image of God. Thirdly, God does not breathe air. God involves two components revealed in the Gospel according to John in chapter 1, verses 1 to 5, where God is said to be a Word, and the life of God, which is the light of man, of which life the real self, not the flesh, is an offspring. In verse 18, quote, "And the Lord God said, It is not good that the man should be alone, I will make him an help meet for him. But hold it right there. God had already created man in their image. So, it is plain to see the contradictions and confusion in these writings. In verse 19, it is written, quote, "In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return." God is not the dust of the ground. In verse 21, "Unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins, and clothed them." The soul does not wear or need clothes. And in verse 22, "And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever." It is obvious that this verse refers to the soul. Notice it refers to man, and not Adam. Why? Because the scribes have confused the two entities as being one and the same. So, the scribes are straight out lying to the reader. And in verse 24, quote, "So he drove out the man. And he placed him at the east of the Garden of Eden, cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to keep the way of the tree of life." Man, the soul, became the fourth one in heaven, and not Adam, who is a beast of the field, being formed out of the dust of the ground, who eats the dust of the ground for all the days of his life, which is the breath, and not the life of God, which is the light of man, of which life the real self is an offspring, and not the flesh. In my next video of this series, video 7, I shall return to the opening of the books, and about what reality really is, and how this story fits in with the all. From the Gospel of Thomas, verses 1 and 2, quote, "And he said, Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings, will not experience death." Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." End quote. What is the all? Jesus tells us in verse 77, quote, "Jesus said, It is I who am the light, which is above them all. It is I who am the all. From me did the all come forth, and unto me did the all extend. Split a piece of wood, and I am there." End quote. You won't find the flesh of Jesus there, but you will see the light. And continuing verse 77, quote, "Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." End quote. You won't find the flesh of Jesus there, but you will see the light. So, this tells us plainly that Jesus is not referring to the flesh of Jesus, but instead the life of God, which is the Lord God, King of kings and Lord of lords, of which life the real self, not the human entity, is an offspring and child of the light, the life of God. The reason the churches preach to their followers to worship the flesh of Jesus is because they only know the beast, which is the flesh, and know not life the real self, an offspring and child of the light, the life of God.